Hi there and welcome back to my channel. Today I start filming another project vlog and I will be making an April cardigan by PetiteKnit. For this project I will actually be repurposing the yarns from my ballerina wrap top. I talked why I want to unravel this top in my Everything I Need in 2023 video and also in my video on how to repurpose the yarn. So if you're interested in that part, feel free to check those two videos. But now I will just talk a little bit about the yarn I will be using. So the yarn is a combination of two threads. The first one is filcolana awetta, which is basically a sock yarn. It is a superwash merino wool and nylon blend. And the second thread is filcolana tilia, which is basically just an ordinary soft silk mohair. Because I have already worked with this yarn combination and even worn the piece knitted using those two yarns, I can comment a little bit about what it feels like. And honestly, this is definitely not my favorite yarn to work with, mainly because of the soft silk mohair. It just sheds a lot, like insanely a lot. I have never used a mohair that sheds more than this one, and this is pretty annoying for me because I have a sensitive skin and also I'm very allergic, so it's just not the most comfortable yarn to work with for me. On the awetta, I actually don't have anything bad to say. I really like that this yarn gives a very silky feeling and also it creates a very smooth texture, but I know that it's not the most environmentally friendly yarn just because it's superwash merino and nylon blend. I got this yarn more than 2 years ago. I was really excited to try filcolana awetta and I'm actually glad that I did that. I just don't think that I will be using this particular yarn combination in the future. On the pattern side, I feel like April Cardigan is a very popular design from PetiteKnit and probably a lot of people know about this cardigan, but this is just a simple v-neck cardigan with a very special saddle shoulder construction and the ribbed button band. I actually made an April cardigan before. It was my first cardigan that I knitted. I used a very bright purple color, and that's the reason I don't own this cardigan anymore, just because I wasn't really excited about that color anymore. And I also found my finished piece to be very tight fitting and a little bit uncomfortable to wear, so I gifted it to my friend. But I still very much like this pattern and the construction, and that's why I decided to knit it once again. I will be making a couple of modifications to this pattern, but I will talk about them when I get to that point in my knitting. But for the start, I will just mention that I usually knit a size small when I'm working with PetiteKnit patterns, but for this particular design, because I know that it's very tight fitting, I will go up a size, so I will be making a size medium. If I would have more yarn, I will probably go all the way to the large, but I just know that I don't have enough yarn to make the size large. So yeah, that's what we are working with. And now I think we are ready to cast on. So in this pattern you start by casting on a very small number of stitches and then you rapidly work through 3 different sections of increases. In the first section you do increases for the shoulder, in the second section for the sleeve, and the third section is just ordinary raglan increases when you do increases both for the body and for the sleeve. When I was working on my first April cardigan, at first I was a little bit confused by all of these instructions and different increases section, but I quickly realized that it was relatively easy to remember and understand the logic behind those increases, so I didn't have any issues, and that's what happened to me also in this case. At first I was a little bit confused, but I grasped everything pretty quickly. It was pretty easy to remember, and I wasn't checking the pattern constantly to make sure that I'm doing everything right. The yoke of this cardigan is probably my favorite part of the whole pattern, just because of how engaging this process is. I really had a lot of fun working through these increases, and it's always nice when the pattern is separated into different sections, because you're always very excited to reach the next section and move to something else. The yoke takes quite a lot of time just because of how many stitches you have on your needles when you move toward the end of your increase section, but still I enjoyed working through this section a lot, and I think the fact that I don't mind purling at all helped quite a bit with how I feel about this project. And now I think I will just go for a little walk and finish working on my yoke outside, and when I get back I will probably be ready to separate body and the sleeves, which is really exciting. I have been really enjoying working on the body of my cardigan. I think the body is about 12 centimeters long at this point, and I just finished my second cake. So after I unraveled my ballerina wrap top, I had two larger hanks. I wound up one hank into two cakes, and this is my second hank in the form of just one single cake, which is quite dense. It weighs about 120 grams, and this weighs approximately the same, maybe a little bit more. So in total for my cardigan at this point I have 250 grams, which honestly I don't think will be enough to knit up the cardigan of my size, especially considering that I sized up and I don't really want it to be extra cropped. Luckily, or not so luckily, last winter I knitted up this short staple beanie using the same yarn I'm using right now, but this is a slightly different yarn combination, so it's two strands of filcolana awetta and one strand of tilia. So I want to start unraveling this hat as soon as possible and also start separating these three strands into two categories, one strand of awetta and one strand of tilia, and just one strand of awetta. Luckily, I also have this leftover mohair from the same dye lot, so I will be able to also use that one strand of awetta with this mohair for my cardigan. This weighs about 90 grams and this is additional 25 grams, so in total I should have for my cardigan about 350 grams or so, and I think this should be enough. I'm not really looking forward unraveling this hat and dealing with separating the strands, but yeah, that's what I need to do, and it's better to start as soon as possible. I'm currently working on the body ribbing of my cardigan, and to be honest, I struggle quite a little bit to keep my ribbing neat. I've had this issue for quite some time now. My ribbing, my one-by-one ribbing just doesn't look nice, to be honest. It looks a little bit wonky, and I have found a workaround for whenever I'm working in the round of my ribbing, for example for a sweater body or for the sleeves. And usually what I do is I turn my work inside out and work on my ribbing from the wrong side, because the wrong side of my ribbing for some reason looks much neater than my right side. But because it is a cardigan, I'm not working in the round, I'm just working flat, and I'm not able to use my little trick, so both sides of my ribbing look a little bit wonky. The most confusing part for me is that my ribbing looked much better when I just started knitting, and I have no idea why, because I try to be really mindful when I'm working on my ribbing, and I try to keep a very nice tension, but it still doesn't look as good as it looks on my past projects. Even for the ribbing of my first April cardigan, which was also worked flat, it just looks really good. I mean, I'm surprised because it was my first ever cardigan, and I have no idea how I managed to make my ribbing look so good. I'm not able to do it anymore for some reason. And even though I'm not really trying to make my projects look like store-bought pieces or very perfect pieces, for some reason I just don't like wonky ribbing, and I want my ribbing to look neat. So that's a little bit disappointing, but yeah, it's not that bad at the moment, and I hope that maybe blocking will make it look even better. So unfortunately I couldn't make peace with my wonky ribbing, so I just unraveled it about 10 minutes ago. I was almost finished with it yesterday, but today I was just looking at it, trying it on, and I wasn't particularly happy about how it looked. Also, April Cardigan has quite a cropped body with relatively long ribbing, like about 10 centimeters, and I was looking through some pictures on Instagram, and in a lot of cases the ribbon kind of cinches in the whole body and makes the cardigan appear a little bit more fitted, and I just don't like this look. So I decided that I'll just trust my gut and try something that I feel more excited about. So what I want to do is I want to make the body a little bit longer, so I'll work for about 5 to 7 centimeters on my body in stockinette stitch, and then for the ribbing I will do 3 by 2 or at least 2 by 2 ribbing, and the ribbing will be about 5 centimeters long. That's the plan for now, and I can't wait to see how it will look like at the end. I honestly had such a hard time deciding what kind of ribbon I would like to make for my cardigan. So when I started working on 2x2 ribbon for the body, I just wasn't able to envision how the 2x2 ribbon would look like on the finished garment, and so I was really concerned and indecisive, and I decided to just give myself some break and some time to think, and so I switched to one of the sleeves. For the sleeve, I knew from the very beginning that I would like to make my sleeves less fitted than in the original pattern, so I decided that I will make less decreases than the pattern tells me. So I just needed more rounds of stockinette stitch without doing any decreases between each decrease section, and in total I did 4 rounds of decreases less. I'm pretty happy with how the sleeve fits at the moment, so I'm very happy that I've done this modification. Once I got to the ribbing part and I did 2x2 ribbon on 3mm needles, I honestly was really surprised how much I liked it. I was very happy with the result. I also did just an ordinary bind off instead of like tubular bind off. For 2x2 ribbon, it's very tricky to do 2x2 bind off, and I did tubular bind off for my poppy sweater and was really happy with it. But for this cardigan, I just attempted a few times and every time something went wrong, so I was like, okay, I'm able to tolerate just an ordinary bind off. I did that, then I went back to working on the ribbing for the body, and both the ribbing section for the sleeve and for the body is about 6 centimeters long, and then again I just did the ordinary bind off. So now I'm finally able to start working on the button band. For my first April cardigan that I knitted 2 years ago, I just followed the pattern and made a ribbed button band. I also ordered the buttons from PetiteKnit website and used the ones that she used in her original sample. And honestly, I wasn't really happy with the result. To be fair, the buttons were quite heavy, yet very beautiful, but the ribbed button band for such a lightweight cardigan, in my opinion, is not the best option, just because it's not sturdy and dense enough, and it just doesn't feel very durable and doesn't provide a structure to the piece. And after my first April cardigan, I knitted a couple of cardigans with double knitted button band, and honestly now I love double knitted button bands much more than ribbed ones. I think they look very neat, very polished. So for my April cardigan, I was sure that I will be also making a double knitted button band. One annoying thing about knitting double knitted button bands is making buttonholes, because if you use the traditional method, you need to cut your yarn and then you have a lot of ends to weave in, and the whole process just feels a little bit fiddly. Luckily, I recently heard, I think in Handmade by Florence podcast, that she found a tutorial from the woman who makes all the tutorials for PetiteKnit on how to make a buttonhole without cutting the yarn. I remembered that, and I just watched this tutorial a couple of times to understand the technique, and it's quite useful. I will link it in the description box down below and also somewhere here. So now I'm working on double knitted button band, which is really exciting. I really love knitting double knitted button bands. I don't find this process annoying or very long and boring. I have a lot of fun with double knitted bands. have just finished my second sleeve of my cardigan, and that means that I'm done knitting it. I just need to wash it, block it, and then attach the buttons. But I'm obsessed how it looks. I'm really happy with the fit. It's a little bit wonky at the moment, but I'm sure that blocking will fix it. Also, this sleeve is much wonkier than this one, just because I've used the yarn from the beanie that I unraveled for this one, and the yarn wasn't washed, so it was really curly, and that's why it's not very neat, but I hope that blocking will fix it. I also just noticed that the ribbon on this sleeve is a little bit longer than the ribbon on this one, and I'm not sure if it's because I was knitting a little bit more relaxed, so the gauge is a little bit different, or if I miscalculated the rows, but I'll just double check it right now and maybe unravel a couple of rows and redo the bind off. That's what I love about the simple bind off, because I can just pull the yarn and it will unravel without any issues, so I don't have to bother about that. I literally have the smallest ball ever left from this yarn, and I'm so happy that I won the game of yarn chicken, because yeah, I was a little bit worried about that. And I really like the color, and honestly, I really like this fit. The double knitted button band was a pleasure to work on. This technique for buttonholes without breaking the yarn is just superior. It was quite annoying for me to break the yarn every time I was working double knitted button band, but this makes it 10 times better for me. So yeah, I'm so happy, and I will just check on the ribbing for the sleeves. So yeah, you can see here that it's a little bit bigger, but the way my stitches look, I just feel like my gauge is different, because yeah, the yarn is a bit curlier, and truth to be said, I was rushing a tiny bit through the cuff part. So yeah, I'll just double check it now, and then I will just block this gorgeous cardigan. I'm so excited about it. So my April cardigan is finally finished, and I'm just in love with how it turned out. I think it's a very perfect, cute, small red cardigan. I honestly fell in love with this color once again, but to finish it up wasn't exactly a smooth sailing. After it was dry, I realized that my sleeves were way too long, and also the bind off for the body was a little bit too tight, and I wasn't able to properly close this part. I didn't want to postpone it, so I decided to fix it right away, but because I was a little bit annoyed at myself and also the situation, I didn't want to record anything, so I didn't. But what I did for the sleeves, I just unraveled the cuffs and about 4 centimeters of the main part, and then I just add the ribbing once again. And this time for the ribbing I used 3.5mm needles, just to speed up the process a little bit and also to make sure that the cuffs won't be too tight. And for the body bind off, I at first was a little bit scared that I wouldn't be able to unravel the bind off without ruining the button band ends, but actually it wasn't too difficult. I just had to keep an eye on any loose stitches, and what I did, I just unraveled it, and then I used 5mm needles to cast off the stitches once again, and I'm very happy with the result. It's still a little bit tight, but it was actually intentional because I didn't want the bind off to be too loose, but I'm perfectly able to close the last button, and I also have a little bit of wiggle room here. Then for the buttons I had two options. The first one was very like special and a little bit festive buttons, and those classic ones, and I decided to go with the classic ones just because this cardigan is special enough because of the color, and I didn't want to draw any more attention to it. The color of the buttons matches perfectly with the color of the yarn. The one thing I'm not particularly happy about is that the last buttonhole is actually positioned very high, and first of all, when I hold it like this, it's not really comfortable here, but also it looks a little bit weird, so I decided not to attach any buttons here and just keep only 3 of them. You can still see here that I have a buttonhole, but I think it's not very noticeable, and maybe I will try to seal it a little bit with some leftover mohair so that it's not noticeable at all, but I'm perfectly fine with how it looks at the moment. To wrap this video up, I will just mention a couple of words about yarn and pattern and final fit. So for the yarn, I talked a little bit about the yarn in the beginning of this video, and I basically don't have anything to add. I still think that this mohair sheds like crazy, and we have red fluff everywhere in our apartment once again. It's also quite fluffy, so this cardigan is very warm. And for the awetta, I still think that it's a very nice fingering weight yarn. It does give a very smooth, silky feeling to the fabric, which I like a lot. As for the pattern, I'm very much in love with this April Cardigan pattern from PetiteKnit. I think it's very nice and it's very well written and it's really easy to follow. I'm in love with this shoulder construction. I think it's very clever and it looks very nice. Even though I did some modifications to this pattern to my taste, I think even in its original form, this cardigan looks very nice. I would just mention that this pattern is very tight fitting, so in case you would like more positive ease for yourself, I would just go up a size or even 2 sizes. And if I'm slowly moving to the fit of this cardigan, I still think that it's not the absolutely perfect fit. I would really like for it to have a little bit more positive ease, and as I said in the beginning of this video, I really wanted to make a size large. I just knew that I didn't have enough yarn, but yeah, it's for sure better than my first version in the size small, but it's still, I think it lacks just a little bit more of positive ease, especially at the bust area. At least for me, I think I will be wearing it open most of the time. I'm very happy with the length of the sleeves, and for the body, it's not really cropped, but it's still quite short, and I like that the body and sleeves are equally short, which makes it very balanced. In my opinion, I'm very happy that I decided to unravel my ballerina wrap top and repurpose the yarn for this cardigan. This one feels much more comfortable and wearable for me, and I feel myself very confident wearing this piece, and I just love how it looks, and I think I will have a lot of occasions when I will be able to wear this cardigan and feel super cool, because unfortunately it wasn't the case with my ballerina wrap top. I'm very happy that I have once again a cardigan in my hand knitted wardrobe, because I feel like cardigans are the most practical pieces that I can have. They're so versatile and comfortable and easy to style that I'm just in love, and I definitely need to make more cardigans for myself. And I think that's everything I want to tell you about my newly finished April cardigan. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, I will be looking forward to see your thumbs ups and comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!